With Randy being one of the most beloved characters in the Scream franchise, what does his story look like?
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
Welcome to another Ice Cream Sunday where I talk about my favourite franchise, Scream. My name is Em, aka Horror, and in today's video I will be talking about the timeline of Randy Meeks. Randy was first introduced in the events which took place in 1996 in Woodsboro. He's one of Sidney Prescott's friends, and we first see him when he is sat at a fountain with Sidney and the rest of the group, talking about the brutal murders of Casey Becker and her boyfriend Steve Orth. When asked by his friends where he was the night before when the murders took place, we find out he was working at the video store. He starts to mock the killings and points the finger at his friends in a joking manner. After his friend Sidney is attacked by the killer, the school closes early and Stu Mocker decides to throw a party at his house. In preparation for the party, he goes to the video store where Randy works, and they get into a conversation about the party and theorise on who the killer is. He also shows a clear love for horror movies when asked a question by a customer. It is during this conversation that Randy admits he likes Sidney and wonders if he would stand a chance with her, to which Stu says no. Randy points the finger at Sidney's boyfriend Billy, who was arrested the previous night under suspicion of being the killer. Billy shows up and confronts him about this. Randy, whilst clearly shocked, still believes Billy is the killer. Although there is a curfew in place due to the killings, the party goes ahead and Randy is present, hanging out with Sidney. After some time passes, he watches some horror movies with other partygoers, and this is where Randy shows how much he loves horror movies when he explains to the others the rules of surviving a horror movie. Rule number 1, no sex. Rule number 2, no drugs or alcohol. Rule number 3, don't say I'll be right back. When Stu says he will be right back, Randy foreshadows that they will see Stu in the kitchen later on with a knife, which turns out to be true, but not in the way we expected. Not long after this, there is a phone call to Stu's house and Randy answers the phone. He relays the message to everyone that Principal Himbry has been found murdered and hung from the goalpost at the school, to which a lot of the others respond by leaving the party to go and look at the body. Randy is then left alone, with Halloween playing on the television. As he watches this, Ghostface appears behind him and almost stabs him, but is distracted when Sidney is heard screaming outside. Randy is next seen visibly shaken when he appears next to Gail's van, however Gail hits him with a phone and drives off. We next see him when he finds Sidney at the front door of Stu's house and runs towards her to warn her that Stu is the killer. However, as Stu is also pointing the finger at Randy, she does not trust either of them and locks them out. Randy manages to get into the house when Billy opens the door to him, however he is then shot by Billy and is knocked out. He does, however, survive the incident and comes to just as Billy attacks Sidney. However, Gail shoots Billy and Randy warns that the killer will always come back for one last scare, which proves to be true until Sidney shoots Billy in the head. Randy then helps Sidney's father with Sidney, as he was also a victim of the killers. 2 years later, in 1998, Randy and Sidney are at university. Randy is in movie class the morning after 2 fellow students were murdered in the cinema by someone who was wearing a Ghostface costume as they were watching Stab, the movie based on the events from Woodsboro 2 years earlier. Randy has a discussion with his class about sequels and how they are inferior. When Sidney shows up at the end of the class, they both leave and have a discussion about how Sidney thinks that this is starting all over again, but Randy disagrees. Randy also clearly still has a thing for Sidney. Gail Weathers turns up to the university to report on the murders, as this movie is based on the book she wrote about the events. Randy makes remarks about her having calf implants before Sidney tells him to be kind as she saved their lives. Dewey has also shown up on the university grounds. When there is a frat party at one of the sorority houses, Randy continues the discussion about sequels with one of his fellow classmates and friends, Mickey. When another murder happens, Randy and Dewey discuss who the killer could possibly be and theorise on this, noting that it could be anyone, including a Woodsboro survivor. At this point, Randy also points out that it could be Mickey, the movie fanatic. However, he points out if Mickey is a suspect, then so is he, and dismisses this. A little while later, Randy is sitting with Gail and Dewey when Gail gets a phone call from the killer. Randy takes the call and learns the killer is watching them, so the three of them separate to look for the killer, whilst Randy still keeps them on the phone. He starts to insult the killer as well as the killers before them, which results in Randy being dragged into Gail's news van and being killed by the killer. He is then discovered by Gail, Dewey and Gail's cameraman. Mickey and Mrs. Loomis, Billy's mother, who has been posing as a news reporter, are later revealed to be the killers, and Mrs. Loomis admits to killing Randy for talking badly about her son. Another 2 years pass since these events, and we are introduced to Martha, Randy's sister, who has gone to Hollywood to meet with Sidney, Dewey and Gail on the set of Stab 3. She presents them with a video which was made by her brother during his time in university. In the video, he mentions that this will only be viewed if he did not survive the events of 1998. He lays out the rules for surviving a trilogy, and says that everything they thought they knew is off the cards and that anyone can die, including Sidney. This message is heartfelt and leaves a mark on those who watched it. Although Randy did not survive to see the events which have since taken place, his legacy has lived on through not only his sister, but also his niece Mindy and nephew Chad. Mindy is also obsessed with horror movies and regularly watches the Stab movies, especially the first one where her uncle is portrayed on screen, as she sees this as a movie which calms her. She has also followed in his footsteps by observing the rules for surviving a horror movie, which she carries on throughout her time in the franchise. Randy's journey, although short, was sweet, and he has left a long-lasting impact on the franchise and the audiences, making him one of the most well-respected characters who we wish we had had more of. So as always, what do you guys think? Do you think Randy should have survived the events in Scream 2? Do you think his character has had a long-lasting impact on the franchise? Let me know down in the comments. If you have enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and switch on the notifications button, as I will be uploading more content like this. This is not an AI channel and I do everything on my own, so any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out my other content here. With that being said, I will see you in the next video.